Hi there, and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. And guys, please take a second at the end of this and rate and review if you haven't already. That's really, really helpful. So I'm joined today by Lea Durante, a family nurse practitioner turned integrative health coach. She wields quick science-based techniques for potent mental and physical transformations. Having trained at the University of California, San Francisco School of Nursing and amassed over 50,000 patient encounters, Lea recognized the limits of traditional healthcare to achieve vibrant well-being. This insight led her to pioneering innovative solutions, employing cutting-edge science for self-directed body, mind, spirit integration, stress reduction, and burnout recovery. Her methods draw from the latest advancements in nervous system regulation, subconscious reprogramming, neuroplasticity, and more. Side note, those are words I don't normally say on this podcast. I hope I did okay.
You did great. And you'll see how they connect to money.
Lea guides individual clients in her signature coaching work, the integration experience, and tailors impactful wellness programs for corporate teams. As a co-host of the From Your Center podcast, she shares resources, tools, and inspiration weekly. She lives in Idaho with her husband and 2 sons and finds joy in reading, gardening, yoga, and jumping on the trampoline with her kids. Lea, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lauren. I'm grateful to be here.
And thank you for including some fun stuff in your bio, like reading, gardening. I love when people do that.
Hopefully you get a little bit more sense of me than just the professional piece.
Exactly. There's more to us than that. So our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today, Lea, we're going to talk about how finances can affect your body. I'm really excited for this. I'm sure everybody can tell from the little bit different bio that we're going to take a little bit different direction today. I myself am trying to get more healthy this year in 2024. And so health is top of mind for me, and I hope it is for some of you as well. And Lea, I've got to ask, are people like more stressed than they used to be?
I mean, well, certainly the statistics say that they are. You know, we've seen an increase in mental health challenges throughout our country, particularly through the pandemic. And we really haven't seen those numbers decrease since things returned more to normal. And we just are inundated with so much more information about the world now. You know, so you compare to people 100 years ago, they weren't aware of 2 wars going on across the world from them. They weren't aware of what everybody's doing on their street today, what everybody's buying. We just are inundated with so much more information. And so pulling through and understanding those influences really, really has a huge impact on our mental health and our physical health and the habits that we have, and whether those habits are habits about how we spend and how we save and how we invest, or habits around the food that we choose. All of those things are really influenced by the environment that we're in. And this modern world just has these kind of like constant stressors in every dimension. And so, yes, I think first, there's just so much more for us to process. And 2, I think we've really lost a lot of the intuitive ways of managing stress, because it's not like I'm watching 1883 right now, the like prequel to Yellowstone, and it's the classic Oregon Trail, you know, story. And it's like, It's not like people didn't have stress or challenges before. They're trying to get, you know, wagons across a river.
Yep.
But we hold it in our bodies in a different way today. And so where there could have been a gunfight in a battle and something stressful before, and we, you know, maybe that's the argument with a boss or challenge with a partner, or, you know, a verbal altercation on Twitter or X or whatever, you know, this stressors come, we just have forgotten our ability to move through those stressors and move back into kind of a place of more calm and ease in our days. And that affects everything. That affects our health, our physical and mental health, and even our financial health.
So I have a question, and this may be a dumb question, but is there a difference between stress and anxiety?
Technically, yes. I mean, so technically the definition of anxiety is somebody who has had persistent worry and anxious thoughts or physical sensations that are manifestations of anxiety, and they've been kind of stuck in them for 6 months or greater, and they are unable to kind of move through them, and it's starting to impact their life in a negative way. So that's from the DSM, and that's kind of where we get our definitions for both anxiety and depression, which finances can bring out both of those pretty strongly. Stress is a physiologic response in the body. So stress is the release of cortisol and adrenaline, and it is evolutionarily designed to help us, right? I mean, that is, as we evolved on the grasslands, you needed that shot of cortisol or adrenaline to get away from the saber-toothed tiger. Those are good things. And we actually still need those. If we've seen the kind of the extreme example is, if your child was stuck somewhere, you get this like superhuman strength and you can like get them out of something you wouldn't normally be able to. But just even cortisol is what helps us get up in the morning and like get started with our day. So it's a really important hormone, chemical messenger in our body. The challenge is we're just flooded with it all the time. And so everybody experiences stress, and stress is that response within our body to the cortisol and the adrenaline that's kind of moving through our system in response to something happening in the environment. So our body is constantly scanning kind of what's going on in the environment and really just trying to protect us and keep us safe.
So using the Oregon Trail example, and that, yes, I know they broke axles. I know they got bit by snakes and died of dysentery. This is what I know from the computer game when I was a kid.
The game,
but
exactly.
Those are in my mind are obvious situations, right? It's like we broke an axle. That's obviously stressful. Am I wrong in thinking that nowadays we don't even kind of know that we're stressed?
Exactly. Because now the email and the notifications from social media and the traffic and the multiple demands on our day, all of those things are again interpreted by our body as stress, even though an email is not the same as a rattlesnake. Like,
yeah.
We know that we know that consciously. And that's where my work really comes into both understanding our nervous system. And again, our nervous system is it's the part of us that's keeping our heart beating. We don't have to think about it. It's keeping us breathing, all of those unconscious processes in the body, but they also really affect how we interpret the world. So we work with the nervous system, which is again unconscious, and then we work with the subconscious mind, because so much of our mind is filtering through and what is the meaning that's being made from the interaction with a colleague, for example. What is the interaction being made when you open up your bank account, and you check how much is in your savings account or how much is in your checking account? That interaction with the outside world is then filtered through your nervous system and your conscious and your subconscious mind. And we can consciously go, oh, I know I'm getting paid, in 2 weeks and it's going to be okay. But our conscious mind is only about 10% of our computing power and our thinking power, and our subconscious mind is 90%. And so many of the ways that we react, again, whether you're talking about how you react to eating more broccoli or saving money, so many of those patterns of behavior and what we do are in our subconscious. And those are created by the society we live in, the family we grew up in, the culture we were around, our coaches, our teachers, like social media. We're definitely right now, like social media, what content we're creating creates these narratives that kind of run below the radar. I like to use the analogy of an iceberg because it's really helpful to have that image of there's a lot going on underneath the surface, literally when you just open up to check your credit card statement. And if you're not aware of that, then it can set off this huge cortisol release, and then you're hanging out in stress all day.
So if 90% of it is subconscious, what can we do about it?
Well, that's the work I do, is I help people. And I love the title of your podcast, Adulting is Easy, because it can be. We literally just have not been given the information about how our bodies and our minds actually work. And this is speaking as somebody who trained at one of the top nursing schools in the country, been in practice for, I've been a nurse for 15 years, nurse practitioner for 10. I wasn't taught about the subconscious mind. I wasn't
Right.
taught about nervous system regulation within my graduate work or in even any of my continuing education courses, because it doesn't fit the narrative of here is the diagnosis and here's the pill to fix it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, our current healthcare system is really, really predicated on that model that there is a pill for every little thing, for every little symptom. And life can be a whole lot easier when we just simply understand how the physiology of our body actually works, because then you can work with it. So I love to use the nervous system with the subconscious, because exactly what you're saying. We can't, I mean, by definition, it's subconscious, it's under, you can't see it, but our body can give us so many clues and understanding of what is happening there. And then you can kind of go, I teach my clients to go at it from two ways, because some people really resonate with making change from a body-based approach and really using the body, and other are more cerebral and kind of like using the mind approach. And so I always give everyone both, and you kind of find what works for you.
It seems like the first step, no matter what, whether it's like grief or I guess if you're doing a 12-step program, like it's awareness, right? Like you have
It's
to be
awareness.
aware that this is happening. And then the other side of it is aware that also you're not alone. Like you are going through
Yes.
this, but everybody else is too, even if we're not talking about it.
Literally, we all have the same nervous system. It's such a beautiful thing because it's a common language that we can all share. And while the physical experiences may be different or the feelings may be different that come up, there is so much shared in this experience of being human. And okay, we're human and we've got these five senses, and how do we interact with the environment and the world? And again, money and finances is just one more piece of that world that we interact with on a daily basis. And how do we understand ourselves a little bit better so that we're more empowered to make the choices and create the habits and the behaviors and like create the life that we really want. And to that point, my work is a hybrid program for that reason, because we have people together. There's so much power in just hearing what other people are going through, even if it's not exactly what you're going through. And it's also another neat way to tap into the subconscious, because something might come up with someone else that you weren't even
Right.
aware of, like you're saying. And then when someone else mentions it, it turns on a light bulb for you, and you're like, oh my gosh, that could be me too.
Even if someone's going through something that's different than I am, I feel like there'd be value in just knowing somebody's going through something.
Yeah,
Because
and we all are.
especially, I mean,
Yeah.
especially social media and stuff, it kind of can seem like you're the only one that doesn't have their ish together. You know what I mean? Like you're the only
Mm-hmm.
one that quote unquote adulting is hard for, if you will, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the
Mm-hmm.
case. So even just hearing that from somebody else. But I wanted to ask about like money specifically.
Yeah.
Should we be checking in with like ourself, like when let's say those examples that you gave up, I'm checking my credit card statement, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying my bills, or maybe I'm checking an investment account balance.
Mm-hmm.
Are those the times that I should be sitting and trying to think about like how is this making me feel and start that awareness, or does it start from not such a tactical thing? Should it we take a step back and just try to think, how do I feel about money when we're not even doing something specific?
Both are good. I work with the discrete, like you were talking about, because I think that's really helpful. So at times it can be helpful to kind of reflect on, like, what did my mom or my dad think about finances? What was money like when I was growing up? What is, I see it even, kind of and people kind of perhaps identify the challenge of, like, I've worked with actors and things who are quote unquote starving artists. And so or creatives, painters or things like that. And they'll get a great influx of money, right? They'll sell a work or they'll get booked for a show. But if the story is, I'm a starving artist, then they're not comfortable having the
Yeah.
financial abundance. And so it goes out the window.
Yep. Yeah.
And so you don't have the skill to cultivate it. And we think that if we just have like the right technique, the right budgeting technique, if I just get the Excel document right and like figure that out. But really, the identity is my identity is I'm a starving artist, and creativity comes from that place of like suffering. And so I couldn't possibly continue my work. Conversely, maybe your father was really risk averse, right? And the idea of investing in the stock market, or maybe trying, the idea of crypto and like getting into something that's like new and kind of on the edge. And the messaging you got was like, save, pinch, like it can disappear.
Yeah.
Then perhaps an opportunity will come across your path that really does make good intellectual financial sense, but your root, your identity is like, money, it's too scary, it's too risky. And so you won't take that chance. You won't take the action. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we're doing, we have to take actions, but our actions come from inside. So I like to start with that discrete place. When you do, first open up your credit card statement. Like, what are the first thoughts that fill your mind when that happens? What sensation do you get? Kind of the classic places to check. What happens in your shoulders? What happens in your throat? What happens in your gut? Like, those are some telltale places. And in fairness, we're awful at this kind of awareness. Like, and statistics say this, like 97% of people, myself included till about 3 years ago, can name about 3 feelings: happy, sad, and mad. That's about it. Yeah. And so we need an increased kind of granular understanding of what's actually happening. And if we're trying to interpret, am I sad when I open up my credit card statement? Like, we need to really understand, am I disappointed? Am I annoyed? Am I irritated? Like, we need greater language in addition to feeling our body, because that can feel kind of funny, and really getting concrete with the thoughts. Because once we can see them, sometimes simply just seeing the thought that comes up, you can be like, oh wait, like that's not actually how I feel about this. And then you can kind of step around it and move around it.
Examining, I've heard these called money blueprints or paradigms, or there's a lot
money
of terms
stories. There's a lot of people. Yeah,
money
a lot
stories.
of words. Yep.
Yes. And that was a big aha that I had. I think I'm looking at my bookshelf. I think it was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind that I read at one point, which is it's kind of extreme in terms of like the language this guy uses, but it's this idea of you don't really realize it, but people are almost telling you, or you are being taught, or you're just observing things in your life that force you into this mindset of, I'm going to be poor or I'm going to be rich, almost like, and I have taken that a step further in my observations, that people think of the wealthy as so other and someone else, and investing is for someone else and it's not for me. And that's something that I think is fascinating. And I wish that we could figure out how to get more people to bridge that gap and be like, no, those are people too. And you could be that. And you can be wealthy and you can live in abundance, and good things can happen to you financially, and you don't have to go through this. A lot of people go through cycles, like you said. And if I read a story one time about a family they came from a family of farmers. And so you do the harvest and you get the money, and then you just spend the money down, and then you get more money, and then you spend the money down. And someone was like in a normal job and was doing the same thing subconsciously, because that's how they grow. And I get it, and then I spend it. I get it and I spend it. I don't save it. I don't invest it. I don't do anything.
But that's like the lottery winner, right? Like, the research shows that lottery winners, what is it, like 5 years later or 10 years, whatever it is, have kind of spent it all. And I think, so I think, again, it's really important. Those money stories are in your subconscious. You didn't do anything, like there's not anything wrong with you. You're not broken. We all have them. It is part of growing up. You can't breathe the air we live in and walk around the planet. And your parents had money stories that came from their parents. And I mean, we're 2 young women sitting here, like in the 70s, I think it was, a woman couldn't get a credit card on her own. Like, it's crazy. But those influenced like every woman before me, and how she thought about money, and how she thought about what was possible with money, and what was hers to have with money. And that does get passed down in the same way that our language gets. So if you wonder if you have a subconscious, the fact that we are talking right now and not thinking about what we're saying, and we understand each other, language lives in your subconscious. That's how powerful this part of our brain is, that we're not consciously thinking about how to talk.
Yeah.
The piece when you were talking about wealth, it brought up for me, I was working with someone recently and we were kind of having that same conversation about like, well, what is the root of the belief around money? Right? Because it's those beliefs, those assumptions, those stories that hang out in your subconscious that really drive your behavior, ultimately drive your behavior. And the belief that like money is bad or rich people are snobby or rich people are selfish or greedy and all those things. And it's like, well, wait, if we just like test that theory, all of us can think of somebody who's dirt poor and a total scoundrel and not good for this world and doesn't help. And we can also think of somebody who's dirt poor and is the kindest, generous, most helpful, loving, like you just want to be in their energy. They are always there for people and they have this just internal sense of kind of just happiness and satisfaction with their life. You can also think of rich people who are total scoundrels and doing not good things with their money and wasteful and all those things. And you can think of really amazing, wealthy people who do phenomenally good things
Yeah.
for our world and make huge differences and huge impacts. So it's not the money, right? It's the
Yeah.
person. And so when you can realize like, oh, money is just an amplifier. Money just kind of amplifies what's already there. So if you are kind of in alignment, good values, understand what you want and what your mission is and how you want to show up in the world and the impact you want to make, money just makes it all easier and better and you're more effective. It's not
And
going
what
to
you
like
just
change you into a
no. No. And what you just did there was a really good example of examining what belief you have. An example, like, how do I feel about wealthy people or people that are wealthier than me?
Mhm.
And then making that a conscious thought and making it kind of a logical progression of thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, is that true? Let me examine that. Let me think of
Mhm.
this example, this example, this example. And so I think that was a really good way to help us think through, make some things that are subconscious,
Yeah.
bring them to conscious, and then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
assume then that's then going to change the
It
subconscious
does.
at the same
Yeah.
time.
Another fun thing if people are struggling with that, watch a show of people that like really turn you off. So like if the Real Housewives, if you're just like disgust, like some people love it, it's like their thing. Other people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe those people. That's a great one because like I was saying, it's so helpful to get a concrete start at a concrete moment. Like turn on the Real Housewives of, again, I don't watch it, it's just not my thing, but whatever, Beverly Hills, New York. And like, what are the first judgments and thoughts? So those judgments, those beliefs, those are all what's hanging out in our subconscious. And again, we want to believe that we're consciously choosing everything that we do and the habits that we're creating, but 90% of it is really ruled by whatever gets locked in those neural grooves and kind of in that habituated patterning. And again, it's because our brain wants to conserve energy. When you're looking at survival, we want to be able to look for a pattern. And once our brain kind of decides, oh, this is how it works, this is how money works, or this is how email works, or this is how I make coffee, as soon as it understands it, it puts it into the subconscious to be habit. So you don't have to quote unquote think about it. You just do it.
Yeah.
And so that can be
See,
really, really
like,
great if you're saving or investing, or like
yeah,
if that's just like your automatic, here's what I do. The flip side can be, what if that's spending? What if when I
right.
feel angry or upset or sad, buying this thing outside myself is going to change that feeling, then that also is a habituated behavior that hangs out in the subconscious. And so you feel that sadness and you're like, all right, let's go shopping
Right. Or have a glass of wine
or have a glass of
for
wine. Yeah.
me.
Yeah. We're talking money here. So, but yes, or have a glass of wine or
Well, it's the classic, is that a lion that I need to run away from, or is it not?
mm-hmm,
Right. And
mm-hmm.
like you only need to learn probably once that I run away from lions, and then you file that away and that's it.
Yeah,
But this
exactly.
is a lot more nuanced than that. So I'm going to ask you a question, and
Yeah.
this may be like too extreme of a question, but like, What's your number one advice if people have decided something they want to do in 2024 is have a better relationship with money?
My number one advice would be to take a step back and realize that if we want to improve the relationship with money, the place you start is with you. Instead of starting with money and like going for the hack or the tip or the thing to quote unquote fix the money that's outside, that actually it all starts with you, because you are the ones that makes the decisions, consciously or not consciously. You are the one that creates more value, creates more money in your life. You are the one that is the ultimate driver of all that's happening kind of in the external world. And then I'll give the part two of that would be the most important thing you could do, I think, for yourself, because it's not something that we're talking about, is to map your nervous system and start to understand where cortisol, stress, shutdown, fight, flight, freeze, all these things that we've kind of heard about in either in biology class when you were in high school or, kind of social media. But our nervous system, again, because it's a language, every single person has a nervous system. You've been living with your nervous system your entire life. Even though you might not have ever thought about it or asked a question about it, you intuitively know about it. And so as you understand that a little bit more, then that creates, I find, exactly what you were talking about earlier, that space to be aware. Because if we're going to change something, we've got to have awareness. But that nervous system really helps us. And because money is so stressful, I mean, what is it? I think it's like the number one New Year's resolution, isn't it?
I'm
Like,
sure.
I thought it was like 70%. I saw a news report from a recent survey, like last fall, 77% of people were stressed about their financial situation. So we're talking stress. Stress is a body thing. So like start there, and then, because when we can clear some stress, then you can make some great choices about what it's like. Not a mystery of what we need to do with our money, right?
I think sometimes we need to hear it though. Right.
So start with you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Leah, before we wrap up?
I want to add one piece, because as I was thinking through your questions and coming to share with your community and your group that's really looking at how to make adulting easier, I also want to give you a piece. I shared a little bit how we as a people are really bad at kind of naming our feelings and understanding the meaning behind words. And as Americans, we are in the pursuit of happiness. And I just want to share the definition of happiness is like pleasure related to your surroundings or your current circumstances. So it's an outside focus, which is where I think money can get so stressful, because it's the belief that when the money buys me the new house or the new car or the vacation, when my outside surroundings or circumstances change, then I'll be happy. And that's okay. There's not anything wrong with external things. I love beautiful jewelry. I love nice things. But if we are internally, if we are chasing this thing called happiness and it's all related to outside of us, we're actually never going to get there, because there's always going to be something else, something more, a bigger bank account, a bigger portfolio, a bigger house, a boat, all those things, and that we've seen. And, again, we intellectually and cognitively know this. We know that, the material stuff doesn't buy happiness. But what I think is actually missing in that is we need a different definition of happiness. And interestingly, the English language, about 40% of it, so the way that language is created, we're always like borrowing from different cultures. And the English language, about 40% are words that didn't originate within English, but are borrowed from other cultures. And so we made them our own. And it's kind of the humility to recognize we just don't have a good word in our current language to describe it. In Sanskrit, which is an ancient language from India. They have a word called sukha, and it's just a word that means genuine, lasting happiness, independent of circumstances.
Huh.
So independent of whatever that bank statement says, independent of whichever car is in your driveway, independent of whatever it is. And so again, not that there's, I think we can hold both. We're capable of holding both, but we also have to have our current culture and our current language really doesn't give us a direction to point to that I think leads to that sense of fulfillment and satisfaction and contentment that we want.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of expanding ourselves to hold more and kind of look at different ways for doing that. So just because money tends to bring up this idea of the material things that it can buy, I just wanted to share that last piece. As I was preparing to come on here, I was kind of looking back at definitions that I thought might be helpful. So
I love that. That is helpful. And can you let people know how to get in touch with you?
absolutely. So I am on Instagram and on LinkedIn. If you're over there, I'd love to connect. It's Lea Durante, NP, Instagram, Lea.Durante.np, and Lea Durante NP on LinkedIn. My website, leadurante.com. A lot of the things I talked about the subconscious and the nervous system, I actually wrote a free ebook. So I think it's about 20 pages, but it gives, I'm a sucker for research, and I like the sources cited. So if you're kind of curious about learning more of the science, you can find that at leadurante.com/ebook. And happy to connect with anybody who is curious to learn a little bit more about how starting with your body and starting with your mind can really impact your stress levels and the habits and behaviors that you're engaged in on a daily basis.
I'll put those links in the show notes along with the link to your podcast as well.
Awesome.
And guys, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Adulting is Easy, or YouTube at Adulting is Easy as well. Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real. If you like this episode, you also like episode 161 from last week, or episode 74, Empathy and Shame in the Personal Finance Community. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully, Lea and I have made adulting a little easier for you.